Good morning, everyone. Here's your Mormon news update for April 19th, 2024. We're going to start right off with an article from the Salt Lake Tribune entitled Tithing Lawsuits from 4 States Against the LDS Church Get Transferred. Guess where? A series of fraud lawsuits filed in multiple states against the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints over tithing have now been moved to a single federal courtroom in the faith's home state of Utah. In the name of justice and legal efficacy, an esoteric panel of federal judges based in Washington, D.C., has ordered 4 would-be class action complaints against the church filed by former or disaffected Latter-day Saints in Illinois, Washington, Tennessee, and California, transferred to the Salt Lake City Court of U.S. District Judge Robert Shelby. What are some common facts from the different suits? Plaintiffs in the 5 cases all allege that church leaders falsely claimed tithes paid by members were used only for charitable or humanitarian purposes, the DC panel wrote, while instead allowing tithes to accumulate in investment accounts, hiding the extent of its wealth from church members, and spending tithing monies for commercial purposes. All also contend, according to the panel, that they were misled by church leaders' statements that no tithing would be used to develop City Creek Center in downtown Salt Lake City, and then learned via an IRS whistleblower that the church diverted $1.4 billion to the mall project. The church has, of course, steadfastly denied that any tithing funds were used for City Creek Center, saying instead the money came through its for-profit companies and investment earnings on tithing amassed in its reserve funds. I've said this before, and I will say it again for those of you who are like me and got married young, had many children, I have 6, and then scrimped to try and get by while paying tithing to the church, thinking it was going to charitable causes. This is infuriating. There were times when I literally did not buy food or clothing for my children so that I could give my 10% to the church. Meanwhile, they were amassing literally billions of dollars and using it to fund a high-end shopping mall where I can't even afford to shop. Next up, just some quick commentary on an article from Latter-day Saint Mag written by Daniel C. Peterson entitled Brigham Young and Slavery in Zion. He's talking about a book that he read with a group of people. The book is entitled Slavery in Zion, a Documentary and Genealogical History of Black Lives and Black Servitude in Utah Territory, 1847 to 1862, written by Amy Tanner Theriot. And one paragraph in this article stood out to me where he says, first of all, though, let me stipulate what cannot be denied. Brigham Young and other Latter-day Saint leaders of the pioneer era held racist attitudes that would and should not be tolerated today. So did many other leaders and thinkers beyond the church. And this is something that I have noticed happens a lot, especially when apologists are talking about racism in the Mormon church. Listen to that sentence one more time. So did many other leaders and thinkers beyond the church. The problem with that statement is it shows quite unequivocally that apologists want to have their cake and eat it too. They want to say early leaders were called of God, early leaders were talking to God, early leaders of the Mormon church had revelation and inspiration directly from God and said the same things that everyone in every other church said at the time. Now, this kind of blows my mind because were the leaders being inspired by God, or were they just like every other leader of the time? The Mormon church claims to be the one and only true church on the earth. If that is so, they should be held to a higher standard. So when apologists make the argument that leaders of the church did this, but a lot of other churches' leaders are doing it too, I think they need to choose. Are you the one and only true church who should have more knowledge because you are the only church with the correct priesthood, with the correct keys, and you talk to God? Or are you just like everybody else, just trying to find your way and you're just swayed by whatever else is going on in society at the time? Or are you different because you talk to God and you have direct revelation? Make up your mind. Next up, from the Mormon Land newsletter, where is the church growing the fastest? In bold at the top of the article, it says, Africa rules. Good news keeps flowing out of Africa. Once again, the continent led the way in church expansion, providing 11 of the top 13 nations with the fastest growing rates last year, topped by Mozambique, Rwanda, Tanzania, Burundi, and Angola. The church continues to experience rapid, unprecedented growth in East Africa. Independent researcher Matt Martinet writes at ldschurchgrowth.blogspot.com. In Mozambique, where a temple was announced in 2021, there was a net increase of 6,290 just in 2023, a remarkable number considering there were only 18,443 Latter-day Saints at the beginning of the year. In Central Africa, meanwhile, swift growth persisted. Membership in the Democratic Republic of Congo jumped into six figures at 115,027, according to the church's latest nation-by-nation statistics. Growth rates in West Africa, however, have slowed. There were no countries in West Africa that experienced an annual membership growth rate of 10% or more during 2023. At year's end, Africa's overall Latter-day Saint membership was nearly 850,000. Now, considering the last article that I was just highlighting where it's talking about the early church and their racist beliefs, it feels unethical to me that they are going to Africa and converting people who I am certain they are not telling about Brigham Young and what he said about skin color. Next up from religionnews.com, it's not just young women who have a problem with Mormon temple garments, it's young adults, period. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints revised its temple recommend questions late last week to remove ambiguity about when and how endowed members are supposed to wear their temple garments. The change took effect Wednesday. It is so funny to me that the church changes things and then they have like an effective as of date because God changed his mind, and on April 17th, that's the day that he changed it. In sum, the language about wearing the garment day and night is back. From 1976 until 2019, the temple recommend interview asked members if they were wearing their garments night and day as instructed in the endowment. But from 2019 until this week, the language was changed to, do you keep the covenants that you made in the temple, including wearing the temple garment as instructed in the endowment? Now the language will be changed once again, this time to, do you honor your sacred privilege to wear the garment as instructed in the initiatory ordinances? That will be followed by an explanation that the garment should be worn day and night throughout your life. So we're largely back where we were in 2019. We found out this change was coming when General Authority 70 Kevin Hamilton warned us of the impending change. Hamilton, who is on a committee studying possible redesign of garments, told the assembled lay leaders that too many young women wear them mostly on Sundays and when attending the temple. He apparently singled out young women who avoid wearing garments in favor of yoga pants. Or so goes the theory. Young women are the culprits. But what happens if that's not true? In the Next Mormon Survey Project, results from 2022 and 2023 U.S. data collections were analyzed. One of the graduate assistants associated with the project was curious about how gender might correlate with garment wearing, so he began analyzing the data accordingly, zeroing in on one question. Thinking about church temple garments, when was the last time that you wore them? Three general takeaway points became clear as the responses to that question were explored. The first is that a majority of people who are supposed to be wearing their garments said they were wearing them. It came in at 54.5%, so barely a majority. Yay for that other almost half that isn't wearing their garments. Good for you. The second point was that women are slightly more compliant than men in terms of who was wearing garments at the time of the survey. 56% of women and 53% of men. So, Mr. General Authority 70 Kevin Hamilton, maybe you should check your facts before you go and accuse women of being the non-garment wearers when it is actually both men and women almost quite equally. A third thing that the survey results showed is that young members, both men and women, aren't as tractable and obedient about garment wearing as LDS leaders would like them to be. And by young members, they meant anyone born after the mid-1960s. More than 8 in 10 baby boomers and older said they were wearing their garments on the day of the survey. Garment compliance among younger members tends to be very low, and I celebrate this. Don't wear those if you don't feel comfortable in them. I have not missed them even one day since I took them off 5 years ago. And last up today, the Church Members Tools app launched version 5.0. From the Church News, what started as a mobile directory of ward members now provides much greater member and leader support. In this article, they quote a scripture, John 15:16, "Ye have not chosen me, but I have chosen you and ordained you, that ye should go and bring forth fruit, and that your fruit should remain." Member Tools and LCR both aim to help members of the church to strengthen the faith of their ward members, and by providing resources that help make ministering to individuals and families as easy as possible. I love that they back up their new app version with a scripture. It's God's app. So, what's new? Let's look at the overview of what's coming. In this summary of released features, directory, view contact information and photos of members in your ward and stake, including members you're assigned to minister to and those assigned to you, and update your contact information. Messages, view messages with important updates or actions needed. Organizations, view ward and stake callings by organization. Reports, ward and stake leaders can view and update membership reports for members of their ward and stake, including recording attendance and ministering interviews. So when you go in to see the bishop, he can absolutely shame you right there from his phone. He can see if you've been attending church or doing your ministering assignments. Manage records. Bishops, branch presidents, and clerks can move records and record ordinances. Calendar. View event calendars for your ward and stake. Groups. Create custom groups of members in your ward and stake. I have a group idea that might come in very handy. If there is someone in your ward who is a registered sex offender, maybe put them in a group and know who they are. Temples. View your assigned temple, temples nearest your current location, ordinance schedules, submit names to the prayer roll, and set up a temple recommend expiration reminder. You don't want that temple recommend to go out of date. Plus, there's so many temples now, people don't even know which one's closest. So it's a good idea that they put a temple locator on there. And you can submit names to the temple roll, which I think could maybe be kind of fun. Meeting houses. Find meeting house locations and addresses, sacrament meeting times, and contact information for bishops. Missionary. Access contact information for the full-time missionaries assigned to and serving from your ward or stake, and refer a friend to the missionaries. Now, this is actually quite handy. When we lived in Alaska, as we were moving, we needed an extra set of hands for a couple of things, and trying to find the missionaries' contact information was rather difficult. We did find it though, and they came over and installed flooring in our basement while we installed flooring on the main level. It was incredibly helpful. And that was hours of time that they didn't have to spend out proselytizing and telling people things that, unbeknownst to them, are not true. Finance. Organization presidencies can submit payment requests. Update. Turn on automatic updates and manually update your data and settings. Select a light or dark theme for the app. Set photo downloading preferences and allow former mission leaders to view your contact information. And there you have it, folks. That's your update for today. I absolutely hope you have the day that you deserve.